Hello, hello, hello. Happy Wednesday. Hi, Yekemi.
Hi, good to see you again. And you reminded me just a few moments ago that we spoke last in February. So I can't believe where the time's gone.
I was thinking the same thing. I was about to say, well, we had a brief chat with Yekemi together and we're like, oh, yeah, we saw each other in June. No, this was February. So here we are.
It
Seven
shows
months
you.
in the making, and I'm happy. So thank you so much for accepting my invitation. We are going to dive into a very exciting topic. I know I've seen a lot of content around. I know you've been doing an amazing work as well in that. I feel like you cannot escape, even with the best intention, personal branding. But anyhow, we'll dive into that in a few seconds. Obviously, for anyone joining us, hi, 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 welcome. Feel free, obviously, to say hi in the chat. Feel free to drop questions along this conversation. I've got plenty to ask, but you'll be prioritized, obviously. So I'll keep an eye on the chat. For anyone who didn't have a chance to meet you just yet, can you share more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, and I really appreciate it. It's gonna be fun. My name is Dr. Yekemi Otaru. I'm based in Aberdeen in Scotland, and yeah, I am a business owner primarily, and we work mainly with sales teams, and we help them have more predictable revenue. And so it's really about putting those processes, strategies in place, helping them gain the skills that they need. So I absolutely love our team. We've got a team of seven. And also another hat I wear is I'm the Chancellor of the University of the West of Scotland. And we do have a few campuses across the UK, and it's one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. So, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to our chat.
I love it. So many things that you're involved in. Full disclosure, anyone who is hearing weird background noise, we're back to school and I live next to a school and this is playtime right now. So hopefully this is not going to be too disturbing. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I think this is also the most important thing, but just wanted to give some context there. So you've mentioned a lot of things obviously that you're involved in. The one question I want to ask you is, how would you define your personal brand nowadays? Because obviously you are many things and you're doing many things.
Oh gosh, that is such a great question. I talk about personal brand all the time, and for me, to be honest, when I started, I guess, working in my work career, I didn't really know about personal branding. And what I've realized along the way in the past, probably 18, 19 years now that I've been a part of the workforce, is whether you know it or not, you have a personal brand. And when you now talk about personal branding, it's that deliberate aspect of it, the fact that you're deliberately crafting what that looks like. And so, in answering your question, I have to talk about when I deliberately started influencing my own personal brand, because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
bet I
yeah.
had a brand before that, and I'm not entirely sure what it was. But certainly, when I started taking more deliberate ownership of my personal brand,
And when was
I
that,
think
if I may interrupt? When was that?
yeah. Oh, so it probably came when I started kind of moving careers.
Okay.
So I'm an engineer by background. I've got a couple of engineering degrees, and I worked as an engineer for the first kind of 6 years of my career. And then when I was looking to move into marketing roles, I was doing a part-time MBA at Henley Business School over in Reading. And that was a time where I needed to sit up and be not necessarily more visible, but I needed access to people I could learn from. And it was around that time I joined LinkedIn, and I started taking part in conversations on LinkedIn groups in particular, asking
Ooh.
questions, contributing and learning. And it was during this time I thought, right, I want people to see me as X, because that's going to make them want to engage. It's going to make them more likely to respond to me. It's going to make me more visible for the sort of
Yeah.
roles I now wanted to go after. So I would
It's
say
going to
that's when I
align.
became conscious. It's going to
Okay.
align. Um, and so I guess primarily my personal brand is really around inspiration
Mhm.
and inspiring people who are, well, in three different buckets: people who are trying to do the same kind of things that I've been um, I guess, blessed to be able to do. So that could be changing careers, exploring opportunities. I want to inspire them. I want them to see that somebody was able to achieve that and so if I can do it, they can as well. The three key areas for me are around my generation. And so people who are around my age, doing the same things I'm doing. It could be married with children, maybe not with children, maybe not married, but they're around my age and around my kind of point in life.
Yeah.
The second would be my gender, so women who maybe could do with some inspiration, right? To help them aspire and do the things that they dream of. And finally, my race. So people who come from minority backgrounds who maybe think, gosh, I don't see anyone like me doing the things that I would love to do. And for me, that's really important. So I guess the overall personal brand that I think I have is really about inspiration. And I do a lot of that through writing and more recently speaking to people.
Like we're doing right now. I feel inspired just listening to you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Anyone going through that journey, I think, first of all, let me acknowledge that. I love what you said about the personal branding versus personal brand. A personal brand potentially means that you might not be aware that you first of all you have one and that you can own it. I feel like this is obviously the first step. It's like, okay, how do I own my own personal brand and actively, like you were saying, do some personal branding? I think this is a very important point that you've made. And the one question I have is, from your experience, obviously you gave very much practical example. By the way, side story, do you feel like LinkedIn groups are still active and something to use now? Right, like, okay. I just wanted to double check. I just wanted to double check that because I was like, oh, this is fascinating. Yeah, this was back then.
Back then, like 2011 or something, they were awesome. Now it's just
Yeah. That's something for anyone to take into consideration for personal branding. Okay, good. I just wanted to check that. From your experience, because like you said, it's back from 2011, what would you say has worked, but also what hasn't worked when it comes to defining your personal brand?
So I mean, this was kind of learning by doing type thing. And
Yeah.
I suppose the number one thing that didn't work was when I started trying to copy people. So when I thought, oh, this person seems to be getting a lot of engagement, they seem to be really popular, and then you try to start using their kind of language, even sharing their kind of content, that didn't work for me. And some of the signs I wasn't working was, well, first of all, it didn't feel good doing it. I just felt like this wasn't me.
Forcing yourself? Yeah.
Yeah, so kind of forcing yourself. And the second thing is anyone who even knew me, I felt could pick up that, that doesn't sound like you. Like, what are you doing? So, and it's not that it's not that brand's bad. It's just it's not you. It's not authentic. You're kind of forcing it.
Yeah.
And the third thing was the fact that I struggled to be consistent, because when you're not being yourself, being consistent becomes incredibly exhausting, because you're stepping into someone else's kind of shoes and it just becomes tiring. And then getting that consistency that really helps to establish your personal brand, that just goes away, because it's hard work. You think about it and you think, oh man, I have to do this today, because it's not really you. So those were the three things. Was first, it just didn't feel good. Second, I wasn't recognizable, right, to the people that actually knew me. And thirdly, I just struggled to be inconsistent. So that's the stuff that didn't work.
Yep.
And what worked was literally the opposite of that. And I have to say that that's actually been quite a recent thing for me, was really understanding that being authentic and bringing my true self into who I was online and at work was actually the superpower that I needed. And I think that happened through self-awareness. If you don't really know yourself, it's hard to be yourself, because you can get quite confused. And I think for me, moving from a corporate environment and becoming a business owner was a huge leap that forced me to become more self-aware. Because I think, and sometimes, this is not true for everyone, but sometimes we take on almost like the values and the views of the company we've worked for, especially if you worked there a long time. And anyone who's listening now might be able to resonate, and feel free to comment. You take on those values. And for me, I always joke that I had to go into kind of rehab and kind of really like figure out who I really was and what I
purge yourself from those and see what you keep with you that is truly you.
Exactly. And also understand my emotions. So for instance, I spent a lot of time recognizing when something didn't feel good or something kind of upset me, and quizzing myself on why. Like, why did that interaction feel weird? Because up to that point, I didn't really know. I just knew that didn't feel very good. And I don't know if you've experienced this. You have a lingering bad feeling, and you're trying to work out why do
Where's
I
this
feel
coming
bad
from?
about this?
Yes.
Where is this coming from? And I kind of became my own counselor. Like, so why did that feel off? And digging to the bottom of it. And then through that process, I developed, I guess, some self-awareness, and then bringing that self-awareness into what I was writing, into the way I interacted with people, into the way people allowed people to treat me, became really powerful. And over time, that sipped into how I interact on platforms like LinkedIn and the sort of content I put out. And I remember probably last year, someone I have a lot of respect for in the business community said, you do realize that your inner voice is getting louder and louder on LinkedIn. And I wasn't doing it on purpose. I just started being more me. But this person said, it's getting louder and louder, this inner voice. And for me, that was a win. That was fantastic feedback, because that's what I want to happen. And that's still happening. There are parts of me that I haven't fully exposed, and over time I will. So that's what worked. It's the self-awareness, being able to identify my own values and bring that out so that you attract your kind of, I don't want to use the word tribe, because I kind of hate it when people do that. They go, oh, tribe. I mean, it's just kind of a tribe, but you attract people that have similar values, who are inspired by you. And then it just becomes easy. It becomes easy to show up and to be consistent. Absolutely.
I love it. I mean, I resonate with it very much personally as well. And I think you're touching on different things. I mean, first of all, like you said, the first piece is self-awareness. I feel like probably, and I've seen that personally as well, coming from corporate, starting my business. I was in my late 20s, I was not even like established as a leader in the sense of a corporate word. That was already starting my own business. It was super hard for me to own my business owner hat and just get out there on LinkedIn, even though I had to, because I was like, this has to start somewhere, so I'll go there. Sorry for anyone who's gonna experiment my first content. This is gonna be very ugly, but here we are. Exactly. And I remember, like, it was, oh my god, like I could feel it in my body still, the feeling of like, oh, this, I have to do it, but this is really uncomfortable. But anyhow, here we are. Point is, I feel like, and I've struggled with this personally, I've seen that with my clients, especially like you were saying, when you're trying, or when you're transitioning, not even trying, you're just transitioning in terms of industry or roles, or you're moving away from like the corporate world to starting your own business. I feel like this is probably where it's the hardest potentially, because like you said, you have to have that self-awareness, but you're not even maybe sure 100% about what would it look like on the other side. So it's about finding that thin line of like, how do I position myself in that personal brand that I know aligns with where I want to go next. But at the same time, let's say I've got 15 years, which wasn't my case, but I've got some clients for who it is the case. I've got 15 years of corporate background, known as like a marketer. How do I actually assertively step into that personal branding that I want this to be mine moving forward? I know it was a very long way of asking this question, but hopefully this makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, the first thing is the person has to realize that they need to be deliberate about this personal brand, right? It has to be something that they do deliberately. And I think often women in particular, we don't, it's not that we don't understand the value, it just feels icky. I'll use a term from my daughter. Yeah, you get it. It just feels a bit icky to be putting yourself out there, like personal brand, and you want to roll your eyes. And we often hope that someone's just going to notice how good we are, how smart we are, and go, you're amazing, come and take this next opportunity, come and do this, come and do that. Doesn't happen that way, right? Whether you are inside an organization looking to be recognized and promoted, whether you're a business owner looking for your potential customers to notice you, you have to do something deliberate and you have to stand for something. So about a year ago, I developed this kind of threefold approach to a personal brand and developing it. And one of it has to do with your values, right? So if you are in a position where you want to you're in a company and you're looking to get promoted, or you want to move to another industry, you're looking for some kind of career change, or you want to start your own business, whatever that looks like for you. Understanding your values is going to be your guiding light, and it's a huge part of your personal brand. And so, what are your values? What do you care about? And it's not just business. So, I'm not talking about, oh, I care about customer loyalty. That's great. But what are your values? Like, what are those things that you find that you get particularly hung up about and other people don't? So for some people, for instance, it could be injustice.
Yeah.
You just, thinking about other people being mistreated in a certain way really makes you angry in a way that maybe another person might not be so upset about. That's just an example.
Yeah.
So get an understanding of what your values are. And then the next thread there is your story. That's what makes you unique, because all of us have a different story. Even if you've studied the same thing at university, you work in the same sector, you live in the same town, your story, how you ended up being who you are, the things you've learned along the way, the things you've overcome along the way, that's what's going to make you unique. So embrace your story and have a reflective time around, what's my story? What got me to where I am? And it's very much reflective, because when we're on that journey, we don't often say, oh, this is my story happening right now. We don't often do that, right? It's later on people start asking you, how did you do it? How did you get here? What were some of the things that you had to overcome? What was the thing you enjoyed the most? When it's happening, you're not thinking, this is what I enjoyed the most. You're not. It's usually a reflective. So that reflective time, trying to piece together your story so that you get really good at telling it, it's important. And then the third part of it is your personality. And this is something that happens when you start trying to copy someone, your personality just gets sucked right out. So you have to add that personality. And so bringing together your values, your story, and your personality creates that sweet spot in the middle where this is your personal brand. And so that's what I would say to anyone going on this journey, is to get an understanding of that. And I've been really honored to work with a few ladies on this as they've been kind of going through that, either a career change or just looking to get more opportunities to speak, to be asked to be on boards, whatever that looks like. Is really understanding the intersection, because if you miss any of those, you risk having a brand that doesn't really align with you. So if maybe you get the values right and you get the story right, but you don't get the personality right, then you're not recognizable. It's like, you're someone else. If you get the values right and you get your personality right, but your story is absent, then people struggle to connect with you, because they're like, I don't know what this person's about. Don't know where they've been, what they've gone through. They don't feel human. They haven't shared experiences that I can connect with and go, oh yeah, I understand that. That's happened to me, type of thing. And so it's really important to bring those together. Yeah.
Very much practical. I love that. I feel like I've seen the beauty of going through the values exercise through the coaching I also do with my clients. And I think it's something that consciously or unconsciously, you have, like you said, because you tend to have like very intense reactions one way or the other, like one way being super passionate, or where a value is being conflicted. It's like, oh, I'm very pissed off, I'm very angry, like this is just conflicting. But once you actually put the words and you take the time to really put it down, I think this is a game changer. I know for me, for example, the number one value is growth. And I was like, oh no, I get it. This is why I got bored super easily in terms of like staying in the same role, or like this is why I love doing like podcasts and books. And anyway, it just made sense. And I know, for example, for me consciously, and this is why we're having this conversation today, it's super important for me to serve my community in a way that empowers them with more knowledge for them to grow on their own terms. And if I've got someone who potentially doesn't resonate with growth, that's fair enough. Everyone their own value. But I feel like you said, starting with the values part especially is a way to use this as a compass for your personal brand, to make sure that the people that you navigate or gravitate around or invite to gravitate around you would resonate as well. I feel like it's the time where I need to go to the second part of the title for today's event, which is why personal brand is a key to success and obviously purpose. Because I know we had a conversation together, we're like, yeah, now success, this is just too shallow. This is not about success in the sense of like, I don't know, a better salary or whatever that is. It's deeper than that, right? So let me just ask you that from your experience, why personal branding is important first. Let me start there.
Yeah, especially because I started out not really realizing, well, I didn't even know the words personal branding until probably 6, 7 years ago, to be honest. Um, and like I say, everyone's got one. It's just whether you're actually doing it
Yeah.
on purpose or not. And going back to your comment, yeah, when we talked about doing this live together, that word success, I often see it throws people off a little bit, because when you say, oh, how to be successful in business or how to have a successful personal brand, success means different things to different people. And often when you see success, people think, oh, this means I'm going to be rich or I'm going to have a lot of followers or something. But you have to define what success means for you. So that's the first thing. And for you to know what success means for you, you need to understand what your purpose is, right? And if you don't understand what your purpose is, then you can't actually deliberately craft your personal brand, because you don't actually know what you're about. And so from a personal branding perspective, it's really about understanding what you want to get out of it. What's your objective? You don't really just create a personal brand, or certainly progress your personal brand if you don't know why you're doing it. So I think that's really important, to understand why you're doing it. And so the variety of reasons you could be doing it. It could be that you have a specific reason you want to change careers. Like now you're a doctor, but you want to be a banker. So you need to work on that personal brand so that you attract the kind of opportunities you want to attract. It could be that you're looking for a portfolio career where you're going to be on some boards, you're going to be angel investor, you want to help maybe inspire people in your particular community. And so your personal brand needs to reflect that, so that the sort of people that you want to help, that you want to support, will get gravitated towards you. So those are reasons. I think that's the number one thing, is if you don't have your purpose, like you don't know why you're doing it, then it becomes really difficult. And without a personal brand, you won't attract the people that you're looking to help. You'll become surrounded with some people, but you'll get frustrated because they're not necessarily the people that
The
you
right
are
people.
looking to inspire. So that's why they work hand in hand, the whole idea of purpose and personal brand. So, and some people may have seen this happen, or maybe it's happened to you, that you do something and you were hoping to get a certain result, you get a result, but it's not what you were hoping for. And you're like, why am I surrounded by all these people? These are not the people I was hoping for. And it's because from a personal branding perspective, it hasn't been clear what it is that you're actually about, and how you can help, and what makes you unique, and why you should be the person doing this thing. So that's really the key reason. And because we look at the values, we look at the story, we look at the personality altogether, it means that everyone's personal brand is unique. Even if you meet people that are similar, they've got similar personal brands. So maybe they both talk about entrepreneurship, they're both from a similar ethnic group, maybe they're both the same gender. There will be something in it. Could be their personality,
Or
it
their
could
story.
be their value, their story, that makes them different. And so if you're not actively trying to uncover what this is for you, you risk just being like everybody else, and people not being able to, when someone goes, oh yeah, I remember that person, I forget. And it's like, that's the
It's the
worst thing
worst.
that can happen. It's
It's
like,
the worst.
oh,
Yes.
can't remember. And you want them to remember something, even if it's that she always wears yellow.
Yeah.
And you want them to remember something.
You do. I think that's a very important point. I love that. And just to go back to your last point, I feel like you owe it to yourself. Like, we here on a given time, like we don't have unlimited time on this planet. And like giving the gifts to yourself of like knowing your story or owning your story, like what are the things I want to be known for, and also making sure that you're clear, like you were saying, of what your values are, and what's my personality. Like people know probably who they are, but sometimes they don't dig deep enough to actually own the full facet of their personality. I feel like this is the best gift that you can give to yourself, because at least you it's like, I mean, the way I feel it is and this is when I started my journey into coaching 5 years down the line, is it's almost like flipping a switch on. And it's like it was dark grayish before, it was hard to see, but then the minute you actually have that level of self-awareness, like you were saying, everything just is clearer and brighter. It just makes more sense. It's just so much easy to move forward as well.
It absolutely is. And I love what you said about us owing it to ourselves. We only have a finite period of time on this planet. So
Yeah.
you have to be able to answer what I sometimes call the so what question. So it's like, okay, you're Kemi, you've got these kind of talents, you live in this place, you're part of this family. Like, so what? Like, what are you gonna do with that? Like nothing. Like it's such a waste. So that's really like the key message, and I want to link that a little bit to business, because I think there are some similarities when people start a business and they just hope that someone is going to notice how good they are, or that this is just a great piece of technology so people are going to notice. You have to be clear about your purpose. You have to be clear about who you can help, why you're the best person to come to. What is the value that this client is going to get from working with you that they won't get from working with someone else? Because a whole bunch of people could be competing on price. So all of you charge £1,000, so big deal. All of you could be making sure it's green, so maybe it's green for everybody. So what is that thing that's going to be different, right? So it's like answering that so what question. If they work with you, what are they going to get? And that could be that working with you, you provide this kind of additional personal touch, and you've got a very kind of relationship-based type approach, which a certain kind of client will benefit from. They would like. Some clients will hate it, right? They want something more transactional, and this whole relationships thing is like, it's not where they're at. And so I think there are similarities between those two things. And that's why, when I talk about personal branding, I also draw similarities to people that are in business, because I think the habit of not being clear about your purpose, not defining what success means for you, sometimes seeps into our businesses as well, where we're not doing that for our business, right? So personal branding, if you replace personal with business, it's business branding. Imagine if your business didn't have a brand. Like, how is it gonna? They're not gonna find. It might work initially, where people that know you, your black book of contacts might work with you, but after a while that's going to dry up, and then you're going to have to do something. So it's really back to what you said. You owe your business that, just like you owe yourself that.
Yeah. And I've loved doing the exercise of reviewing my values on a personal level, but defining what my values were for the business, because some of them are similar, but some of them are slightly different. Yeah. And I think this is where it's really interesting. It's like how much of myself I'm bringing to the business. Well, spoiler alert, it's like 70% probably. So it's still a big piece, but yeah, I think it's a very important point. As usual with these things, time just goes by. So few minutes that we have left. Is there anything, Yekemi, that you're like, oh, I really, really wanted to touch base on that, or any final words that you want to share with the audience who is definitely on a journey to smash and own and master life with the personal brand?
Yeah, probably just a couple of things. For instance, anyone listening to this now or later, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I do appreciate people reaching out in that way, so feel free to do that. And also, just back to what you said, Anais, I think we need to do this for ourselves. We need to do this for our business, if you own a business, because it's really important that you understand your values, you understand the story that you bring, and that your personality is injected into that. If you want to do some more work around that, just again, shoot me a note. I'm actually running a value proposition masterclass on the 26th of September, and it's focused on business, but you will see some of the common threads. So if you are working in primarily business to business spaces, that might be something that you look at, and I've put a link in the chat. If you want to just have a look and see if that's of interest to you. Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yekemi, for your time today. Thank you for being here with us with your amazing yellow jumper. Obviously, you're more than a yellow jumper, but we'll remember you for that as well.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed it. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.